Welcome to your Canadiens Connection on Rocket Sports Radio. We are proud to be the trusted source for all things Habs for more than a decade. This is the Canadiens Connection Podcast.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Canadiens Connection Podcast here on Rocket Sports Radio, keeping you informed, engaged, and entertained. My name is Michael Spinella, and I'll be your host for the next hour. This is episode 261 of the Canadiens Connection Podcast, and I'm very pleased to be joined in the studio by my co-host, the editor of the Hockey News Montreal, the founder and the president of Rocket Sports, Mr. Rick Stevens. And Rick, how are you doing today?
Well, it's been an exciting week, so I'm pretty excited about this show. I'm excited about the next few weeks as training camp is underway. At least the rookie camp is underway for the Montreal Canadiens, so we got lots to talk about. We have a game to talk about. It's all happening pretty quickly. So I hope that most of our audience has been with us over the summer. We've been here every week over the summer, providing you podcasts. If you haven't, you might want to go back and listen to some of those to catch up, because at this point, it's like a moving train, jumping on a moving train. We're in motion. There's lots happening, and we'll try to get to all of that today.
Yeah, we cleared out the flood from the studio. Those who tuned in last week, a little bit of a water issue, but now we have a flood of Montreal Canadiens news to get to, and plenty of fun stuff to talk about here in this first segment. Believe it or not, we had a hockey game, and we're going to be talking about that to start things off. And then in segment 2, we shift our focus and take a look at what the Montreal Canadiens' goal will be going into this season. In segment 3, it's a Have Your Say segment. We turn it over to our listeners, and our Canadiens Connection question of the week is, which players will you be watching during the Canadiens rookie camp? We want to make sure that we hear from you. And Rick, this is a very interactive podcast. So what's the best way for all the good people to reach out to us?
Well, text us. We have set up a Rocket Sports text line. It's easy to remember. It's 5853-ROCKET, 5853-ROCKET. And you can send us a text 24 hours a day with your thoughts, as many have done, especially this past week. If you have a little bit more to say, then we'll fit in a text. Send us an email. You can send us an email at hello@rocketsportsmedia.com.
You can also reach out to us on our social media. Just make sure you're following at Habs Connection on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Also, you can check out our website, canadiensconnection.fm. So, as I said, there were a few games, or at least one game that went down this past week. The 2023 Prospect Challenge is underway in Buffalo, New York. And last night, Friday, September the 15th, Montreal's rookies faced off against Buffalo, and Buffalo comes away with a 6-3 victory. Montreal's goals coming from Simoneau, Tourny, and Waugh. Maybe the nerves got to all these players, but I have to say this was a bit of a disappointing showing from the Habs prospects. This was our first official look at Logan Mailloux and David Reinbacher in the CH. Both are first-round picks, and honestly, I felt a little bit underwhelmed by both of them. So let's hope that they can bounce back. There's a couple games left in this tournament, and I hope they left all their nerves behind in the game last night.
Yeah, and we're not going to evaluate these players too harshly in their first game, but let's also acknowledge that it was the first game, first time for some of the prospects on the other side wearing Sabres uniforms. And I think that it's important to be reminded, and we certainly were on Friday night, that other teams have exciting prospects too. I know Canadiens fans are excited about the prospects on the Montreal Canadiens or in the system, in the pipeline, and you should be. But I think that we can tell that there's still some holes. There's still some talent that needs to be added, and a team like Buffalo, it was good going up against them in the first game, because Buffalo's a little bit further ahead in their rebuild. They have a little bit stronger players on their NHL roster, and they also have a boatload of talent in their prospect pool. We saw 5 first-rounders, first-round picks in the Buffalo lineup last night. Yuri Kulich, Matty Savoy, Zach Benson in this most recent draft, Isaac Rosen, Ryan Johnson. They got a lot of talent there. And it was Jeff Houle, it's the Laval coaching staff that are looking after this rookie tournament. He said there's a lot of speed and a lot of skill in that Buffalo lineup, and his troops had a hard time matching up to that. Particularly on the defensive side, and there was some nice play as well. I thought William Trudeau, he carried the puck a few times, and he seemed confident and poised. Logan Mailloux is an offensive player. His respected for his offensive play, his heavy shot, his physical play. He was exposed defensively a couple of times. And I thought that Reinbacher particularly looked pretty nervous last night. There's a lot of times that he just turned and wheeled and fired the puck off the glass and down the boards. And better to, to clear it out of trouble than try to make a play. But I think that in future he's going to react and make different decisions. He talked about being very nervous. He talked about really feeling the smallness of the ice, the dimensions different, the boards coming up on him much quicker, and it was eye opening for fans and for the young prospects as well. There were some great performances. Owen Beck. My goodness, he looked confident. He looked like he was a leader out there. He looked like he was effective every time. Jan Mysak, feisty, in on the forecheck, making good defensive plays. On face-offs, he was good. And the surprise for me was Florian Xhekaj. With all this talent on the other side, Xhekaj was a disruptor out there, as you might expect. Taking any opportunity he could to poke these more skilled players and put them off their game. So, great to see the Montreal Canadiens in the rookie form on the ice, but maybe not their best efforts. And I expect, we're talking about prospect pools. The Boston Bruins, not a very strong prospect pool, and that's the team that the Canadiens rookies will be up against next. Before I forget, before I move on, I just want to mention Jakub Dobas. He had to be pretty nervous as well. He had a barrage of shots in the first period, 13, I believe, saved 12 of them, made some great saves. So yes, he gave up 5 goals. One was an empty net in that 6-3 loss. But I thought that he played very well in the game. And we'll be keeping an eye on different prospects as this tournament goes along.
Yeah, a couple more opportunities to watch these prospect teams. Today on September the 16th, Montreal's going to face off against Boston in an afternoon game. 3:30 p.m. is the puck drop, and then a day off before they face off against Ottawa on September the 18th. That's going to be a 1:30 puck drop. So if you're at work, make sure you have an extra monitor set aside so you can watch these games.
One more observation, if I can just interrupt for a second. I know that on social media last night, it was fans are saying, listen, these players are new to each other. They didn't have time. They haven't played together. And some of that is true. Again, same for Buffalo. But it was interesting. The opening lineup for Friday night had a lot of similarities from the opening lineup in 2022. In fact, 2/3 of the forward trios were kept intact from last year. That sounds. How did that happen? But the coaching staff kept people together who've played together before. You had Owen Beck and Emil Heineman together in 2022. They had Lucas Condado with them. This year, it was Owen Beck and Emil Heineman together with Joshua Waugh, so 2/3 of that line together. Riley Kidney and Philippe Michard together in 2022 and 2023. The entire third line was exactly the same. Jan Mishak centering Cedric Guindon and Xavier Simoneau. Same in 2022 and 2023. And on the fourth line, Jared Davidson repeated again. It was defense where there was a little more variability with William and Trudeau and Miguel Tourney being the only return players from 2022. But I found that interesting, and things don't happen by accident. Interesting that the coaching staff took a look at who they deployed last year and put them together again so they'd feel comfortable for that opening game this year.
So I think it's kind of nice to see that continuity.
Yeah.
The Montreal Canadiens record in this prospect challenge so far, 0-1-0, so just the one loss. Please make sure you continue to check out Habs Notepad, Habs headlines, and feature articles throughout this busy season at thn.com/Montreal. In our roster news, on Monday, the Canadiens held their 47th annual charity golf tournament. And there was speculation that there would be a big announcement, and we got it. Mike Matheson was announced to be an alternate captain, joining Nick Suzuki, who is the captain, and Brendan Gallagher as the other alternate as part of the leadership group for the 2023-24 season. I think we were a little bit surprised to see that it was Matheson that was the choice. I don't think that it was very clear or obvious, but Matheson is a veteran. Of course, he's got some local ties as well, so we'll see how he does in this leadership role.
Yeah, I think that Matheson was an interesting choice. He hasn't necessarily had leadership experience prior to this. Some had speculated, and I think we would have advocated that 2/3 of the leadership core be made up by young players because they could then grow together. Some had suggested Caufield, some had suggested Caden Gooley as an alternate. If leadership is what you wanted, David Savard has filled that role really well in the past. But question is how much longer is David Savard going to be around? But I think that we're looking for reasons with respect to Mike Matheson being announced as an alternate. And RDS, who have some influence, was quick to jump on the fact that yes, there's been temporary A's, but that no Quebecois player has had a permanent letter prior to Matheson since Patrice Brisebois in 2002-2003. And I know that every preseason, they're banging the drum about this, that it's been 20 years since that's happened, so that they can have someone on the leadership group speaking French. Paul Byron is absolutely fluent, but he's a Franco-Ontarian, not a Quebecois, as the French media was looking for. So there are other things other than strictly hockey decisions that affect decisions in Montreal, and I think we got evidence of that this week. As far as the golf tournament itself, it's the opening of the season. We know that the annual golf tournament happens, and things will start to happen around it. We should remember that it's a charity event, that they raised $855,000 for the Montreal Canadiens Children's Foundation. That's really important from this event. That was a record amount of money. They brought in some celebrities, Jim Furyk and Mike Weir from the PGA Tour, and the fact that each player has an opportunity, and not only the players, but coaching staff and management have an opportunity to speak with the media, and that's very important. So it's there's a lot going on in the golf tournament. I think the other thing that I noticed was there were some interesting pairings, and in setting up the golf duos that went out for a couple of holes. You had, I think it was Chris Weidman and Cole Caufield together, but it was Yuri Slavkovsky and Arbor Xhekaj together. But it was the goaltending duos that the Canadiens had set up that was fascinating to me. You might expect if the two goaltenders this season in Montreal are going to be Jake Allen and Sam Montembeault, that they might be put in a cart together. Didn't work out that way. It was Carey Price and Jake Allen in one, and Sam Montembeault and Caden Primo in the other. Interpret that as you will. Meaning something, meaning nothing. We'll leave that to you.
Yeah, absolutely. At this golf tournament, a lot of players, a lot of people behind the scenes were given different media availabilities, and Jeff Molson being one of those, and he was asked a pretty interesting question. And I have to give credit to the person that asked this question, but he was asked about the skyrocketing ticket prices. We knew back in August that this was something that was going to happen this season. It was said that there would be a 25% increase in the ticket prices. And Rick, what did we have to say about this one?
As you said, very interesting. Jeff Molson doesn't get tough questions because you'll get the glare if media ask him anything tough. And so credit to the journalist that asked him about this. And I mean, it would be disingenuous, but maybe it would have been easy for him to hide behind skyrocketing inflation, especially in Canada these days. But the argument on the other side of that is that 90 some odd % of the budget for a hockey team is player salaries, and those haven't moved. Yes, individuals have gotten raises. Yes, individuals have received more money, but there's been a flat cap. So the team's expense, major expense, that is salaries, hasn't changed. You say, well, yeah, but it costs the Canadiens more because they had injuries. Those injuries are insured for the most part. So why are the prices going up so high? Jeff Molson was asked, and his answer, I don't think he was prepared for it necessarily, but he said his answer was kind of like paraphrasing, well, everybody else is doing it. Everybody else has got high prices. And my goodness, that argument never sounds very good. In grade school, if you say, well, the other guy started, or he's doing it, that never got you anywhere. If try and argue your way out of a speeding ticket saying, well, everybody else is speeding, you're not gonna win that either. So it was a bad look for Jeff Molson, and especially because the Canadiens are, and they have been, in the top 3 in valuations, valued at over $2 billion, and their revenue is top 3 in the league at $150 million. So this is something that the team needed to prepare for with a better answer. TBS Sport, the good people there put together, they went around and looked at the average price of a ticket in Montreal compared to everywhere else. And they said that it was Montreal is the 7th most expensive ticket. And we're talking about average ticket prices, and for a family of 4, that includes refreshment and whatnot. That for the average family of 4, and this was 2022, that's not with this year's increase, it costs $750 to take your family to a game, and which is, as we know, beyond the means of many families out there. And I think that it's clear that Jeff Molson is raising prices. The Montreal Canadiens are raising prices because they can. It's simple supply and demand, and there's an overabundance of demand in Montreal. They're raising the prices because they can, and that $150 million that they made in 2022 is undoubtedly going up. I think that fans deserved a better answer for that well-versed question.
Yeah, I think that's very well put as well, Rick. One of the other things that we have in our roster report here, we saw a picture of this guy put up on the website, but I don't think we saw an official announcement. The Canadiens have hired Mark Mullen as an amateur scout. And another very curious case where the picture's on the website out of nowhere and no press release for this.
It's fascinating how this happens and continues to happen. These people are added without any kind of mention, and we just got to keep on our toes and so that we can pass it on to you. Who's Mark Mullen, who is the newest amateur scout for the Montreal Canadiens? He's been an amateur scout since the 2009-2010 season for the LA Kings. And for the last 6 or 7 years, he's been an amateur scout with the Detroit Red Wings. His hometown is Dorchester, Massachusetts. So we're assuming that there's a connection there with Jeff Gorton, Kent Hughes, and also the stop in Los Angeles. There might have been a crossover with Nick Bobrov. So I think these people all know each other, and that led to Mark Mullen being added to the amateur coaching staff.
So we'll continue to hit our refresh buttons throughout the week and see if any other pictures pop up. Cole Caufield was in Las Vegas last week for the 2023 NHL Player Media Tour, and he had a chance to take a picture with Sidney Crosby. He had a chance to sit down next to Connor Bedard and take a photo, and honestly, I recommend checking those out. These are really cool to see, and of course, the Las Vegas media tour is a pretty big thing at this time of year. Rick, did you have any other takeaways from this?
Well, it is. It's purely a media ops. It's an opportunity for the media to take pictures that they'll use in promo packages and for their broadcasts for the upcoming year, it puts a representative from each team. Last year it was Nick Suzuki that went to Vegas. They like to spread it around a little bit, so it was Cole Caufield this year. Looked like Caufield had a blast. He was laughing in every picture, particularly with Crosby. It's an opportunity for him to get known around the rest of the league and to interact with other players. A lot of fun, and who better to pick to represent the Canadiens than Cole Caufield.
And now I think it's a good time to get to our Habs prospect report.
It's time for the Rocket Report. The Rocket Sports Media Team is your premier source for information about the Laval Rocket, the AHL affiliate of the Montreal Canadiens, as well as Habs prospects playing in the CHL, NCAA, and leagues around the world. Bookmark thn.com/Montreal to follow our comprehensive coverage of Canadiens prospects.
So we have a trade to announce, or maybe we don't. I'm not sure, to be honest. The Canadiens acquired Jakub Novak from the Ottawa Senators in exchange for future considerations, is what was being reported by Cap Friendly, at least. But as far as we can tell, Jakub Novak actually signed an AHL deal with Laval a few months back. The Ottawa Senators relinquished his rights after they did not extend him a qualifying offer. And Rick, this seems like a bit of a mess. I'm not sure quite what happened here.
Caused a huge stir on social media when Cap Friendly announced that, as you said, there was a trade to announce. That the Canadiens had acquired Novak for that future considerations. Always, folks always poke fun at that. What do we end up owing Ottawa? Well, in this case, it's nothing. This is all about bookkeeping. As you said, it was July 3rd when free agency opened up. The Laval Rocket made some signings. They signed a number of players to one-year, one-way AHL contracts. Toby Paquette-Bisson, Jared Davidson, who we talked about earlier, goaltender Strauss-Mann, and Jakub Novak. Novak is a big player, 6'3", 203. 24 years old. Last year he was in the NCAA with Northeastern and then closed out the season with the Allen Americans in the ECHL. He was a 7th-round pick in 2018 by Ottawa, but as you said, they had decided not to sign him. This is all about reserve lists. The Canadiens have a reserve list. Ottawa has a reserve list. He was signed to a contract by the Montreal Canadiens on July 3rd, but technically his rights were still controlled by Ottawa because he was on their reserve list. So this is just cleanup, moving him from one reserve list to another. Cap Friendly is usually very good about this stuff. They didn't explain it very well, so it caused a real stir. But there's no trade to report. Simply bookkeeping.
And I think had this happened almost any other time of year, I don't think it would have been as big a deal. I don't think it would have been trending as much as it was. So I think we're all starving for hockey, but don't worry, it's underway. We have the Prospect Challenge happening. No need to focus too much on Yakov Novak.
Yeah.
So we have a number of quotes coming from different people in the organization in regards to mentoring young prospects. And, according to Kent Hughes, this starts with leadership, right?
That's right. He was asked about this as part of the charity golf tournament. The Canadiens held a round table, question and answers for people that were there at the tournament, and they took some questions online as well. Answering the questions, Kent Hughes, Marty St. Louis, and the two alternate captains, Brendan Gallagher and Mike Matheson. And they were asked a really interesting question about how the Canadiens, what program that they have in place to mentor young prospects. And it's something that we have talked about for a long, long time, that how important it is to mentor young players who get thrown into the NHL and with not very much background as it were or guidance. It's kind of they're left on their own to survive or not. And Kent Hughes was asked about that, and he said, it's all about our dressing room. Our dressing room is a safe space. It's where our leaders interact with our young players, and we believe in open communication. He talked about the fact that they have a sports psychologist on board, and basically said that this, while there doesn't appear to be any program in place for mentorship, that this is how the team takes care of it informally, and others kind of chimed in on it. And Marty St. Louis talked about his way of his approach to mentoring with young players.
Yeah, no, I have all the young guys living in my basement.
So. Humor, that helps, but it also just reinforced the fact that the Canadiens don't have a program to officially mentor young prospects. This is something we've been talking about since the AHL affiliate was in Hamilton, and back then, very directly. Many prospects were telling us, "Why do you put us in Hamilton? This is a dangerous city," and we're left on our own, kind of thing. So it's something that other teams do, and the most famous case, of course, Pittsburgh Penguins, Sidney Crosby. He went to live with Mario Lemieux. We know that case, but it's something that doesn't happen so often. Anymore. A 17-year-old was sent over to Europe in the midst of the pandemic without any kind of mentorship, and it didn't work out. So I think that the Canadiens need to do better. And something happened over the last few months, or the last month, for Logan Mailloux, and he has been staying, we learned, with an experienced NHL player.
Yeah, I've been here for about a month, so I was actually fortunate enough to be able to live with Paulie Byron and his family for about a month. So they opened up their doors for me, and they were awesome. They were great. So I mean, I got to live with a guy who's got over 600 games for a month, going into my first year pro. So it was really good to pick his mind and pick his brain a bit for sure.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And he said that that one of the pieces of advice that he got from Paul Byron, and listen, they're two pathways to the NHL, completely different. But what does that matter? Paul Byron, one of the biggest messages that Logan Mailloux got was, you have to fight for your position every day. Somebody's there to challenge you. Somebody's there to take your position. You have to focus. You have to fight. You have to give an effort every single day, and a great message for not only Logan Mailloux, but any young prospect.
Yeah, I think those are two really good points that you brought up there, Rick. I think it's pretty significant that Paul Byron's actually stepped up to the plate here. Yeah. I think that's really awesome that he's the one doing that. Our final quote on this topic comes from Brandon Gallagher, and he's talking about people who inspired mentorship early in his career.
You know, I got to play with a lot of really good players when I was younger, but Brian Giunta, who was my captain early on in my career, was really important for me as a player. Smaller player, kind of went through a couple different eras, just knew a lot about the way the game needed to be played and how I would need to play it. And he's someone I still talk to. When we go on the road in Buffalo, he always takes me out for dinner. He'll be the first to tell you he always pays. And I appreciate that from Gio. But he was someone that was really important to me, helped me out in the locker room, off the ice, on the ice, him along with Josh Georges. And then, still to this day have that friendship and that relationship. So that's really important to me.
That's a big message from Brendan Gallagher. We know that Brendan Gallagher lived with Josh Georges, and his girlfriend. I think at that point, or had they been married, doesn't matter. Lived with the Georges family, and it was Brian Giunta, captain at that point with the Canadiens, who passed on the messages about how to be a good pro, and that relationship, whenever the Canadiens are in Buffalo, Gallagher still meets with Brian Giunta, and that connection survives. So that seems to have evolved on its own. That certainly happens, but I think we'd love to see the Canadiens encourage those connections between veterans and between young players, particularly with so many young players on the roster, to help them learn what they need to know, as in Gallagher's words, both on and off the ice.
Yeah, I think that's very important. It sounds like it had a huge impact on Gallagher's career too. So I'm hoping that some people in the organization start to set up and maybe start to make these connections and put some of these younger players in with some of the veterans who are more experienced to help them along in their progression. You can find all of our content about Canadiens prospects at thn.com/Montreal. We have our quote of the week, and this quote comes from Carey Price. It gets a little bit emotional, and it's Carey giving an update on his injured knee.
It's honestly, on a day-to-day basis, it feels really good. I come here, towards the start of training camp, and I feel like I could still go out there and wreak havoc. And honestly, on a day-to-day basis, I feel really good. But when I do certain things on a consistent basis, it's a very, very solid reminder that my knee is not in a position to take the brunt of a full season's workload. I still get a tremendous amount of swelling in it. So for short periods of time, I can do things that are strenuous. But the honest thing is, right now, that it's just not going to happen. To take the stress of the goaltending position isn't, it's not where it needs to be. So for now, I'm just going to continue to try and rehab my knee to a position where it's, fit for life in general.
Well, there, Carey talks about the fact that, he can, his knee is still giving him trouble. It still is not, he's not recovered, but he can put a bit of stress on it. He was, participated in the charity softball game, and afterwards it swelled for 2 weeks. So Carey basically confirming what we knew in the past, that he's not going to return to hockey. His body won't allow him. He still wants to. He still feels that he can go in and be part of training camp, but that his knee won't survive the rigors of an NHL season. One of the reasons he's in this position is because he pushed his body beyond its limits as the Canadiens, as he carried the Canadiens, pardon the pun, to the Stanley Cup final, and punished his body beyond its limits. Shea Weber did exactly the same thing, and now they are paying the price for delivering to Canadiens fans that excitement of a long playoff run and going to the Stanley Cup final. They're left with the burden of injuries that they'll have to deal with their entire life, and will affect their quality of life. So, some people are concerned about Carey still being paid. Well, he deserves every single dollar. And it's not an issue for the Canadiens because, as we know, his money is going to go on LTI, and that even on the bottom line, Jeff Molson talking about ticket prices, that money is insured, so it doesn't come out of Molson's pocket either. Point is that this was pretty emotional, pretty hard hitting for Carey and for Canadiens fans, hearing his own words that he's played his last game.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. And now we'll take a look around the league for some hockey news and notes before we head into our break. To start this off, the NHL trade deadline has officially been set for 3 p.m. Eastern on March the 8th. Last year, the trade deadline occurred on March the 3rd, so it's in and around the same time. Yeah,
and of course, this is going to be a date that it will be penciled on Montreal Canadiens fans' calendar. It's an important date for the Montreal Canadiens. It's a date where Kent Hughes can work to continue to overhaul the roster, can continue to maybe get rid of some bad contracts, continue to build his assets, draft picks, young players, and revamp all the mistakes that were left in his lap.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean that he has to wait until then to start making moves. He has pretty much from now until then to make all these moves, and this ties in nicely with the next thing on our news items, and it looks like the Colorado Avalanche are reviewing available goaltender options as Pavel Francouz has not yet recovered from his offseason surgery. Montreal has 4 goaltenders on one-way deals this season, so they might have a thing or 3 to offer up to them. And I think the most likely ends up being Casey DeSmith, who doesn't really fit into what Montreal is doing at the moment. The other thing Avalanche could look into doing is they could lean into the waiver wire a little bit. We know that there's going to be some goaltenders put on waivers, so they might opt to go in that direction instead of trading for a Casey DeSmith.
Kent Hughes has said that the goaltending market is pretty soft. He'd like to trade Casey DeSmith. He'd like to move him on so he doesn't have to send him to Laval or put him on waivers in the hopes of sending him to Laval. Maybe this will impact the goaltending market Francouz is going to miss some time. It's clear that's going to happen, and Colorado may have to look at making a move, whether it's grabbing somebody from waivers or making a trade. In my opinion, if Colorado calls and they're looking for DeSmith, that will happen. If they're asking about Jake Allen, the answer for me is yes. If they're asking about Sam Montembeault, the answer is, of course, yes. Caden Primo, none of these goaltenders are going to be part of the Canadiens going forward when they're going to be competing regularly for a Stanley Cup. That's an area that's still evolving. So I know that folks want to see Montembeault in the lineup this year. Maybe he'll be in someone else's lineup. More likely, it's going to be DeSmith or an outside chance at Allen.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. So coming up, we'll hear a brand new message from our sponsors, DraftKings, and then we'll get to our big topic segment. Stay with us. This is the Canadiens Connection podcast here on Rocket Sports Radio.
Football is back in full swing with another week of epic games. And who's got you covered on the action for every single one of them? DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. New customers can bet $5 on football and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Nobody's missing out on the action this season. All DraftKings customers can take advantage of 2 new offers every game day this September. Get in on the NFL Week 2 action with DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the app now and use code THPN to sign up. New customers can bet just $5 and take home $200 instantly in bonus bets. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code THPN. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, KS. 21 plus age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. See sportsbook.draftkings.com/football terms for eligibility, terms, and responsible gaming resources. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply.
Welcome back to the Canadiens Connection podcast here on Rocket Sports Radio. I'm Michael Spinella, and you can find me on Twitter at the Spinella. With me in the studio is the president and founder of Rocket Sports, Rick Stevens. Make sure to give him a follow on Twitter at Rocket Sports. You can also follow at Habs Connection on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Plus, check out the website canadiensconnection.fm. Also, just a reminder here to subscribe to the Canadiens Connection podcast on the player or your favorite podcasting app. And this is going to be a pretty jam-packed segment that we have planned for you. As the Montreal Canadiens rookie training camp begins, we will focus on the team's goals for the season, on how the Montreal Canadiens plan to get there. What are the most common messages and buzzwords for this season, and what is the blueprint? This is going to be your guide for what to expect during the preseason and help you gain your expectations for the upcoming season. And Rick, plenty of things went down. We have a lot of audio from this past week. But I think to start off, we should maybe recap some of what was said last season, some of the things that we were talking about around this time, right?
Absolutely. Set the context for us.
So last season, it was a season of intentions. I think intentions was the buzzword being used. We heard that over and over again. And what did that mean? Well, I think it was more about development and giving opportunities as a priority as opposed to winning. Although I would argue, though, as the season went along, I don't know that the Montreal Canadiens were very consistent in that. over the course of the season, of course, we saw Martin St. Louis make some lineup decisions that maybe valued winning over development. We saw Doc being stapled to the wing for months instead of being put at his natural position at center. And even after moving him to center, there are a few times where Martin St. Louis reverted back to putting Doc on the top line wing alongside Suzuki and Caufield. Looking down the organization a little bit, JF Houle last season in Laval, well, he was all about winning as opposed to development.
And that didn't happen.
Yeah, and that didn't even really work out. Laval did not have a great season whatsoever. We saw young prospects like Ulanen and Mishak getting scratched, being given fewer minutes than some of the AHL veterans. So that unfortunately did not work out very well. And despite being a player's coach, going back to Martin St. Louis a little bit, we saw at the end of the season, he seemed to have an issue putting in Sean Farrell into the lineup. It seemed, well, and Martin St. Louis pointed this out himself, Sean Farrell was a Kent Hughes decision getting into the lineup. I don't think Marty wanted him in the lineup, and even after giving Sean Farrell a few games, he put Sean Farrell back up in the press box to watch a few after that. So, like I said, last season we were told it was going to be all about intentions and development, but I don't know that we necessarily got that over the course of the season.
Yeah, that was the buzz phrase of last training camp. It was intentions, not results. And I think that, in addition, I agree with exactly what you said, but in addition, I think it provided, a ready-made excuse for when the Canadiens didn't win. Marty St. Louis just reaches into his back pocket and said, remember, we said it was going to be our intentions, not the results, not the standings. And I think with any of the buzzwords, with any of the buzz phrases that are used, and how do we know? How do we know that has been decided on? Well, when more than one person at different opportunities are saying exactly the same thing, you know that the coaching staff and the management and the Laval coaching staff, that they've all talked about it and come up with these phrases. So it's important to make sure that I guess everybody's on the same page. And as you expertly pointed out, it wasn't always the case. There were some variations, with people sticking to the buzzwords, sticking with the plan as the season went on, but also different parts of the organization seemed to be on a very different page. So I guess what we're trying to do here is help you watch out for signals that can help set your expectations for the upcoming year. And I think we got a kind of an advanced look, and it caused a real buzz in the fan base. At the end of the season, at the end of the regular season, there was the end of season presser. Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton, the locker clean out, call it what you will. And Kent Hughes said, we're not saying we're going to make the playoffs, but we're not ruling out playoffs for next season. We have to start moving in that direction. Well, that went like wildfire, and fans started talking about next year is the playoff, and that just he let that out of the bag, and fans, media, everybody ran with it. And you notice that mid-season when Kent Hughes was talking, he was walking that back a bit. It's really gotten walked back in the last week. So much so that they're talking about, they're back to the whole issue of patience. Be patient, fans. Be patient. This is going to take a while. Be patient. We don't have our group who can compete yet. We still have to acquire assets. We still have to. So please be patient. Question has to be asked is, are the prospects are the coaching staff and are the management patient with the prospects as well? Maybe, because I think it's a two-way street in that regard. But with respect to being patient when it comes to playoffs, Jeff Gorton, and this was at the golf tournament, Jeff Gorton came to the microphone, and he didn't want to say the word playoffs. And it's fascinating. I can't play this audio for you because it disappeared, either from glitches, technically or otherwise. This has disappeared. But the quote, the quote, we have part of the quote for you, but the initial part of the quote is from Jeff Gorton, quote, "Listen, I know that everybody would like us to say the P word." And then the reporters were saying, "Well, what's the P word?" And he was playful with it. "Well, I don't know what it means in French. I can't tell you the French translation." And he danced around a little bit and tried to be funny. But apparently, we've gone from Kent Hughes a few months back saying, "Yeah, we're not shy about saying playoffs anymore," to now they can't even say the word. It's simply the P word.
And I would argue that maybe they should, and I think they have started doing this, they should use a different P word, and that's patience. I think that's something that's come up a few times already. And honestly, this whole media availability, or what's left of it from Jeff Gorton, was pretty good, and I think pretty telling. Did we want to start off with our first audio clip from Jeff Gorton, the one where he's talking about the goal for the season?
And just as a preface to that, listen in these clips as we play them for you. Common words, common phrases. But as you said, here's Jeff Gorton.
I've said this since I got here. We're going to try to get better every day. And I know it's a cliche, and I'm sorry for that, but that's how we're going forward. That's what we want. We have a lot of young players that have some room to grow, and we're going to give them that room.
So that's patience, room to grow. Grow and growth came up from Jeff Gorton, from Kent Hughes, from a number. So the theme for this season is going to be growth. As you said, intentions were last season. The buzzword this season is some of the buzzwords. It's not the P word. It's growth and patience. And a cliche, as Gorton says, we're going to get better every day.
And I think that's fair. I certainly like the sentiment that goes behind that. At this point, Montreal does have a lot of good prospects. They have a lot of good players right now that, internal growth is going to be very important within this rebuild. So I think growth is a reasonable buzzword, but as I kind of talked about in the intro as to what happened last year with some of these buzzwords, I think the proof's going to have to be put in the pudding here. We're going to have to see if they can stick to that for the full season.
Absolutely.
And the next quote we have lined up for you, this one comes from Ken Hughes, and the question he was asked is, are you satisfied with the progress?
Hard to say that we're satisfied. We finished fifth from the bottom last year. There's been a lot of changes, and the changes have been all with the objective of moving us towards something, and we're going to continue to work towards something. But to say that we're satisfied before we're playing in the playoffs and competing for a Stanley Cup is, to me, hard to say.
So the goal is moving us towards something.
What is something?
He said it twice. The goal is moving us towards something. So really not wanting to put the team in the box or at all, leaving it wide open. He can't even define it at this point. But they've said before, they want to have sustainable success, not just one appearance in the playoffs and then out again. They want to build something that's going to be sustainable success, but that's going to move us towards something, says Kent Hughes.
And I do like that he points out that he's not satisfied, of course, with the position that Montreal is in. Like, yeah, obviously you're not satisfied with how things are here and now, and there's plenty of room for, dare I say, growth. I think that's going to come back a few times. Another audio clip we have lined up, and this one's a little bit longer. It's coming from Marty St. Louis, and he's talking about his approach to coaching new players on the team.
You know, I haven't seen him from my own eyes live, okay? And I know, you know, the way he was used in Colorado, and I was very cautious of going and watch tape on him because, you know, I want to have a fresh look in our environment. I don't want to have early thoughts based on what he was doing in an environment in the context I don't really know. So I'm looking forward to see. Listen, I know his assets. He can fly. He doesn't tire out. He competes, and now it's trying to figure out, okay, what else does he do? You know, what's his quality? What are the things he needs to work on? Where is he more comfortable? You know, but we know he can play the power play. He can kill. He can play down the middle. He can play the wing. So to me, what I'm really happy is I feel we got a hockey player. I don't think I'm getting a kid who plays hockey, which I think it's a big difference. So. We'll see how he fits.
Marty tried out that buzz phrase last year that this guy is a hockey player. He's not a guy who plays hockey. Looks like he's going to stick with that through the upcoming season. Of course, he was talking about Alex Newhook there, but it could apply to anybody. We know that, and listen, we're not trying to critique anyone. We know that Marty has his fans among the fan base, and he has his fans in the locker room. Players like playing for Marty St. Louis. They appreciate his inspirational, his emotional approach to games. Unfortunately, I think that Marty, kind of disparages formal preparation, and in this case, kind of an odd, kind of an immature kind of approach to coaching a new player, and that is, no, I didn't spend any time in the off season. And we've heard Marty saying that his off season is his off season; it's protected. When Marty, prior to his first full season, we said we hope that he hits the books, he hits the videotape, and that he prepares and learns about player. He had none of that. He wants a gut reaction to his players. He doesn't want any kind of preconceived ideas to color his opinions of a player. You know, the cover your ears and la la la, I can't hear you. That's just, it's a bit silly for an NHL coach to say that. Or maybe he just doesn't want to put in the work in the offseason. I can't imagine a player saying, no, Marty, I didn't spend any time working over the summer. I wanted to come in and react fresh in the fall. For someone who is so inexperienced as a coach, to not want to broaden his knowledge base of players on his team and in the league, I think it's a mistake. But he has his method, and it's not going to change. We know that for sure. He's going to rely on his gut. He's going to rely on his eye and his ability to instantly evaluate a player in training camp and know all he needs to know about that player. That's going to apply to Alex Newhook. It's going to apply to any of the prospects that come up, that are called up, and that he's going to have a first look at.
See, when I'm listening to that quote from Marty, he almost has me. I'm almost fully on board with the method that he's going with and not wanting the preconceived notions of this player. But then after hearing you talk and thinking about it a little bit more, I think you do have a really good point. And one of the things Marty says in this availability is that he's not had a chance to see Alex Newhook live, which look, I'm not going to go back and check all the game sheets to see if that's correct or not. But I would think that Marty should have a book on a lot of different players across the NHL, and it's kind of disappointing to hear that he just kind of doesn't, right?
Yeah, well, you'd think so. That And I understand he said it's difficult for him behind the bench when he's asked at after games what happened on this play. He says, I have no idea. I'm just trying to keep up with changing the lines, and that's very different for a coach as well. And so if he's having a hard time keeping track of his own players, I guess he's not paying any attention to the opposition players as well. He relies on his assistant coaches to help him in that regard. It's a very different way of coaching. It's great for this young team and to motivate them and to inspire them. Will it still be great once the Canadiens have the potential of being successful? I really don't know.
Yeah, that's very true. And like the other thing that kind of stands out to me is that Marty, he talked a little bit about seeing some of the tapes of Alex Newhook, but then he really emphasizes that he doesn't want to paint Alex Newhook into a corner. He doesn't want to have too many preconceived notions about this player, which overall, I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. You certainly have a player here in Alex Newhook that's looking for a fresh start. He's looking to find his role on this team. But then again, to just not have any sort of a book on this player, I feel a little bit disappointed by that.
Yeah, giving players a second chance. I'm not restricting them. Not saying, okay, Kirby Dach was this kind of player in Chicago, so he's going to be this player again. We get that. We get that you don't want to do that. But having that as part of your base. That, if things aren't going well, he could start to slide into those bad habits. I don't think that's a bad thing. You can have that information and still coach him differently than Kirby Dach was coached in Chicago, than Newhook was coached in Colorado, putting him in different situations. You don't have to shut off, all sources of information to make that happen.
Yeah, absolutely. So the next audio we have comes from J.F. Wool. J.F. Wool, the head coach in Laval. We talked about how Laval did not have a very good season last year. We talked about how J.F. Wool was prioritizing winning over development. And we know Laval's development has just not been a priority for this organization overall. So J.F. Wool actually speaks a little bit about implementing a development program in Laval.
Their patience. I appreciate their patience. I think they're prone development, and for us in the American Hockey League, it's very important. Like I said, we have constant talks with management and the NHL coaches about putting the players in the right chair, giving the right opportunity to certain players, which is very important to the organization. And ultimately, that's our job in the American Hockey League. We want to develop players that can go play for the Montreal Canadiens one day, and that's what we try to do.
So he understands his job. It's to prepare the Montreal Canadiens, prepare the Montreal Canadiens prospect to be Montreal Canadiens players. But Jeff Wool, he has a bit of a playing career. He's had a coaching career. He's competitive. He wants to win. Kelly Buchberger, an assistant coach, LaPerriere, an assistant. They've all had playing and coaching careers. They want to win. So I think the issue is when they talk about how development happens in Laval, what do they hear? What is it that they envision? And last year, Jeff Wool was flat out. He said that my job is to make sure that we win. It's the development staff who comes in and does development in practice occasionally. We had that quote. Now is that softening? He talked about patience, and that is management. Jeff Gorton, Kent Hughes being patient with him. There's that patience phrase again. Another one that we heard throughout, and it's the first time we heard it here, is players in the right chair. And that's a Marty St. Louis quote from last year. We need to find the right chair for players. Marty St. Louis, when Alex Newhook was acquired said, I don't think he was in the right chair in Colorado. JF Wool's now talking about the right chair. We're talking about buzzwords, we're talking about buzz phrases. That's something that's going to come up over and over again.
Yeah, and I don't mind the idea of finding the right chair for a player, but we just heard Marty St. Louis said that he doesn't want to, have any preconceived notions of Alex Newhook, so he doesn't put him in the wrong chair or anything. We'll see if they can stick to that and if that's going to apply to all the different players. We'll keep that quote in mind as we go along here. The next audio that we do have lined up comes from Kelly Buchberger, and his question was, how do you measure development?
I think winning is developing, and I think you ask anybody that has had success is that when you have a winning team, you seem to develop players a lot quicker. And I think that with these kids, they're more in tune about their play right now, and especially in rookie camp, they're worried about themselves, and that'll come in the future of winning. And we feel like in Laval, we have a great atmosphere there. The fans are unreal. We have an unreal facility for the players to train, and so we got to put them in the right area where we can get them quickest to the NHL as possible.
Kelly Buchberger, assistant coach, he hasn't gotten the memo yet about what development means. What is development? It's winning, says Kelly Buchberger. And that's we've heard that before, especially from Joel Bouchard. If we're winning, players are developing. That's not always the case, because you can be winning and you can win a Calder Cup with a team with few strong prospects in the AHL. You can have a team that is veteran laden, or you can have prospects who never play, who play insignificant roles. Winning and development are a bit of a tug of war. They're on the same plane, but a bit of a tug of war, and you gotta watch where the balance is. You can't devote everything to development, because winning, having a terrible atmosphere and always losing, that's not positive for your young prospects. But always focusing on winning means that at the end of the game, when there's a big face-off to be taken, you're sending out your veteran, who you have more confidence in, and what message is that giving to your young prospect? And that young prospect isn't learning how to win face-offs in a big situation. Same applies to learning skills on the penalty kill, or playing up in the lineup, or even getting ice time. All of those things are a push-pull. The winning and developing, and this is a real challenge, because Kelly Buchberger, he wants to keep his job, and he thinks that by winning they'll make the playoffs, he'll keep his job, and that development will come automatically. I don't think it's that simple.
That sounds a lot like what the mentality was in Laval last season when we did see JF Woolenkamp send out, your Alex Belzils with a few minutes left, and then benching your Jan Mishaks and Jesse Ullinen. So unfortunately, after everything we heard from JF Wool, that sounded like it could have been on the right track, sounded like, he was going to start to talk like developing young players. Now hearing from Kelly Buchberger, it sounds like maybe that's not quite what's going to happen, right?
Yeah, it's difficult, and I understand it's difficult. Not many organizations get this exactly right. The ones that do have a pipeline. They choose the right players in the draft. They develop them properly, and they graduate them to the NHL. When it works flawlessly. The AHL coaches don't feel threatened if they're not winning every game. They know, and they've been told by their management, that they need to focus on the development path, the long-term approach, the patient approach.
And I think the last thing I'll say in regard to that specific quote is I think a winning environment could help with development for sure. I think a good mix of some veteran guys who can mentor your young prospects can be very helpful. Like teaching winning is a very difficult thing to do. So I can completely understand why you would want to have your American League team winning. But like you said, it's kind of a push and pull here. You can't really just focus on winning and also be able to develop some of those young prospects at the same time.
That's right.
One final quote coming from Kelly Buchberger, and he's talking about providing opportunity with accountability.
Well, the accountability comes into play, and the young players are going to make mistakes just like veteran players. They're all going to make mistakes, but my thought on all of it is that we need to play these players and for them to develop and get better. They have to learn, there's no question about it, and if they keep making the same mistake, we'll show them in video and everything else. But I think the biggest thing is that you have priorities, we know that, and everybody else knows that in the organization, and as a player that the young guys are here to develop, and the older guys that are playing in the AHL as veterans have to lead, and they have to lead by example. They have to bring the players in like a family and teach them, and the coaches can do as much as we can. At the end, I think it comes down to the player, how bad they really want it and what they're going to do and put the time in to succeed to get to the next level.
My goodness, not to disparage Kelly Buchberger, because he's a very good coach, and we should say that he coaches. He was an offensive player with the Oilers, but he coaches the defense in Laval. But he's lots of mixed messages in there. There's lots of things that I liked, and there's things that I didn't like. He talked about young players making mistakes, and you have to let them make mistakes. Yes. Absolutely. He talked about young players needing to play, needing opportunities to play. Yes, for sure. He said that the organization has priorities and is prioritizing development. Yes, but then he talked about accountability, and if people keep making mistakes, we're going to have to intervene here. And the last part he said about veterans have to lead and the young players have to follow. I don't like that at all. One of the buzzwords that we've heard from Kent Hughes is ownership. We want our young core of players, both at the NHL level and assumingly at the AHL level, to take ownership of this team, because they're the ones that are going to learn to win together. They're going to develop chemistry together. They're going to carry this organization, and the veterans are there to support that effort. And we know those veterans, both at the NHL level and AHL level, it's unlikely that they'll be around when we are a perennially a successful team. So I would have liked to have heard him say, we want the young players to collectively lead. And he chose to say, no, it's the vets that will lead.
Yeah, I agree with pretty much everything you said there. And you can see how maybe sometimes you have these buzz phrases like patience and development, and it can kind of get twisted a little bit into meaning something completely different. Do you agree that that's maybe a case of what's happening here?
Yeah, and because different minds have different ways of interpreting it, and that's even worse when you're at cross purposes, and your messages to the players don't necessarily match what you have in mind. I think there's some of that going on here.
Yeah. And just before we get to our final bit of audio here, and this one comes from JF Wool, remember that whole finding the right chair for a player. I think this is what I want to keep in mind when I listen back to this. JF Wool's talking about young players finding the right role, and in particularly Jan Mysak.
He's coming along slowly. He sometimes obviously he wants to play a little bit more, and in Laval he wanted to have a little bit more ice time and stuff like that. But he's got to find the right chair for himself. I think he can be a good grinder, and so I don't see him as getting like a lot of points in the American Hockey League. But I think he could be a solid two-way player.
He just seemed to. Yikes. So it's one thing when you're in a media conference to middle of the week to talk about the upcoming rookie camp and and your plans for development and how that works into the organizational model and direction that's been set for you. It's another thing when you're in the heat of the action. And this quote from JF Houle comes following the Canadiens' first rookie game that we talked about earlier, the rookie game against Buffalo. And then you're in the heat of the action, and you're still, after the game, the blood's pumping, and maybe a little bit more of the truth comes out. And this is a really, I hope JF Houle would say that he wants a do-over on that, because it was a terrible, terrible description of Jan Mysak. And one of the reasons that I wanted to play this is because we'll tie it into our podcast from the summer. Twice there was the evaluators, the scouts that were talking about the Canadiens prospect pool and where players rank and why they rank where they are. And in unrelated, these two scouts said, we just don't get it. We just don't get Jan Mysak. We watched him a lot when he was in his draft year. He was tremendous. Worked hard. Has a lot of skill. Is feisty. Is really the heart and the effort and the player that he is. We thought that the Canadiens got a steal. And since we've seen him in Laval and the few games that we've seen him, he's been tremendous. But then they said, we just don't understand why he hasn't developed, why he hasn't progressed, why he hasn't, moved further along. And I think we said we said that he wasn't getting ice time. We hear it in the words of JF Houle. He used negative words every time about Jan Mysak. He said his development is slow. He talked about him, he's not going to get that many points in the AHL, and talked about him as a grinder. He said he wants more opportunity. He wants to be in bigger roles. He wants more ice time. But someone, and that is the coaching staff, who have put up those blocks. And so he said, JF Houle said, he has to find the right chair. Well, I think what's happened here is there is that what people interpret by the meaning of right chair, again, a buzzword, a buzz phrase, means different things to different people. For JF Houle, he has in mind what the right chair is for Jan Mysak. In Myshak's mind, he thinks he's a completely different player, and he's got a goal set. And Myshak's goal, I think, matches better with his skill, matches more with his effort, his talent, and the talents that the draft scouts noted. But for whatever reason, it sounds like JF Houle has given up on this player and is trying to pigeonhole him into a role that may not fit precisely.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly the point I was trying to make as well. Have you ever watched Jan Mysak play and thought to yourself, this guy would make a great grinder? Because I don't think I have.
No.
I think him being a two-way guy, sure, I can kind of see that. But just simply saying he's not a guy who's going to put up many points, well, I think Jan Mysak is the guy that you should hope puts up quite a few points, no?
If he's given the opportunity. I understand you want him as your penalty killer, and that's where his role will likely translate to in the NHL game. If he makes the NHL, that he's going to be a bottom six forward, that he's going to be a face-off guy, he's going to be a defensive guy, he's going to be on the penalty kill. All of that is correct. However, how about teaching or letting his offensive talents come out so that he is more of a two-way threat? He hasn't had that opportunity. He's been healthy scratched. He's had low minutes. So no wonder he's asking for more of an opportunity in Laval. And for whatever reason, JF Houle's got the picture in his mind, the opposite of exactly the opposite of what Marty St. Louis said. He's got a picture that he wants Mysak to fit into, and that stubborn player just thinks he can be more than that. It's really interesting.
So I think it's fair to say that Jan Myšak's development has not been handled quite well. It doesn't appear like that's going to be changing, unfortunately. But we'll see how this season plays out. Maybe there'll be a change of heart. Maybe, like you said, this is something that Jeff Wool would like to take back. But unfortunately, at the moment, not a great quote coming after last night's game.
So why did we present this? Again, not to criticize, but to kind of give you all the little pieces, all the little phrases, right chair, patience, taking ownership, all of the things that, and it's definitely not the P word, all the things that are going to be themes throughout this season, and the way that the team is going to be directed, going to be coached in Laval, in Montreal, and the kind of direction that Kent Hughes is going to take as well. Put all that together, and then you can start to ask questions. What are the burning questions of this year's team? And we're going to tackle that on next week's show.
Yeah. So for now, we have a few more games in the Prospect Challenge coming up, and then we get to the preseason. And we want to ask you, our Canadiens Connection question of the week is, which players will you be watching during the Canadiens rookie camp? We want to make sure that we hear from you, and we'll let you have a little bit of a break here to think about it, and you can reach out to let us know. But for now, we'll take a final break. Stay with us. You are listening to the Canadiens Connection podcast here on Rocket Sports Radio.
The Canadiens Connection is proud to be a partner of Rocket Sports Media, digital media publishers of sports and entertainment websites. Their mission is to build a worldwide network of sports fans who are informed, engaged, entertained, and connected. Learn more about RSM, its team, and its portfolio of brands at rocketsportsmedia.com. I bet you enjoy sporting your best Habs jerseys, dressing up your kids and pets in the cutest Habs gear, and showing off your decked-out hockey cave or fanning. Well, don't just show your friends, show your Habs. The Rocket Sports Media team wants you to boast your finest pictures for our global network of Montreal Canadiens fans. Include the hashtag #ShowYourHabs when posting your fan photos on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. Then log on to showyourhabs.com to see your entries, along with photos and posts from Habs fans all over the world. A proud member of the Rocket Sports Media Network. If you're a business owner looking for the perfect platform to reach a targeted audience of customers, Rocket Sports Media is the solution. Our global hockey community provides unmatched social media reach to an attentive demographic of sports and entertainment fans. We can provide visibility to your company, helping you to engage and leverage this prime group of potential clientele. In addition, we also offer sponsorship opportunities for fan events and featured areas of website content, giving you name and logo recognition. Visit rocketsportsmedia.com to contact us regarding this unique marketing opportunity. For the most trusted source of news, analysis, and features about the Montreal Canadiens, log in to thn.com/Montreal, your year-round source for anything Habs related. That's thn.com/Montreal.
Welcome back to episode 261 of the Canadiens Connection podcast here on Rocket Sports Radio. Please make sure you're following at Habs Connection on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and you can check out our website, canadiensconnection.fm. Also, feel free to text us anytime via the Rocket Sports text line. It's at 5853-ROCKET. That's 5853-ROCKET. And that was a fun segment. Really interesting how all those quotes kind of connected together, isn't it?
That's right. They all kind of weave together, and we shouldn't be surprised because these individuals, they talk before they get up before the media and before the microphone and before the fans. There are organizational discussions and themes start to emerge, and it's our job to try and figure out what those themes are, and I think it followed a pretty natural path this time.
Absolutely. And there's going to be plenty of stuff to talk about as the Montreal Canadiens season comes closer and closer. Like I said, there has been some hockey games happening with the Prospect Challenge. The preseason games aren't too far away, and you can find all of our Canadiens coverage in one place. Just head over to thn.com/Montreal, and you can find everything that you need about the Montreal Canadiens right there. Also, you're going to want to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just search @AllHabs and you can pull up our YouTube channel there. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of our content. And one of the many things you'll find on there is our Habs Hockey Report show. That's hosted by Amy Johnson, and her most recent episode is entitled "Which Canadiens Rookies Are Set to Impress at Camp?" Make sure you tune into that, as she gives great analysis, and she also loves interacting with all the listeners. So leave a comment, leave a like, hit the subscribe button. Don't miss a single episode of that. And also, you may have noticed that some of the episodes of the Canadiens Connection podcast have started being put onto YouTube as well. We noticed that a lot of our viewers and listeners have enjoyed that, so we're going to continue to do that. So make sure, if you want to listen to it again, or maybe you're already listening to us on YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Don't miss a single episode, and don't hesitate to engage within the conversation there as well. Also, make sure you subscribe to both of our Rocket Sports Radio podcasts on your favorite podcasting app, wherever you get your podcasts. First and foremost, the Press Zone comes out every single Tuesday, hosted by Amy Johnson, Patrick Williams, and sometimes Rick Stevens will get in there too. You can find every single episode of that at thepresszone.fm. If you've ever missed any of the episodes, you can go back, you can re-listen to all of them, and they're going to be your inside source for everything Habs prospects, Laval Rocket, everything AHL. That's the best place to get all your news and resources on that. And make sure you subscribe to this podcast, The Canadiens Connection. Every single episode of The Canadiens Connection is up at canadiensconnection.fm. So if you missed anything over the summer, go back, listen to all that content. We put out great content every single Saturday throughout the summer, while all your other favorite podcast apps were on vacation. We were still there to give you some great news and updates on everything Montreal Canadiens, and we'll continue to do that every single Saturday throughout this busy season for the Montreal Canadiens.
And at that point, I just want to say a thank you to all of the new subscribers, to those who were with us through the summer. Our downloads were through the roof. We're really glad that you joined us, that you found us, and our plea is to stick with us through the season. We've been doing this for a very long time, since 2012. And we have a little bit of experience doing podcasts. We're called Canadiens Connection for a reason. We have very good connections, and we're going to give you the unvarnished truth from either us, or we're not the cheerleading type. We're going to give you the straight goods, or from the hockey experts throughout the hockey world. We're going to bring you their thoughts as well. So thanks again. Be sure to subscribe. We're on all the podcast apps. Subscribe and continue to listen to us during the regular season.
And also, we are recruiting currently. If you are interested in joining our Rocket Sports team, please reach out to us. We have many different roles. We're looking for writers. We're looking for passionate hockey fans, passionate Quebec hockey fans, passionate Montreal Canadiens fans, anyone who's interested in sports whatsoever. Please reach out to us. And Rick, what's the best way for people to let us know if they're interested?
You can reach out to us on social media for sure, but the best way is habshockeyreport.com, habshockeyreport.com, and find the Join Our Team tab and fill out the short application there. Send it to us. We'll get back to you right away. We've added some people to our team. This is kind of your last call. We want to get our teams set for the upcoming season, just as the Montreal Canadiens and Laval Rocket will be doing over the next few weeks. We've added some people. We're going to make an announcement next week about a couple more who are going to be working on a brand new project for us. We can't tell you about it just yet. We'll talk about it next week. But our team is growing, and our very talented team, and many who have been with Rocket Sports for a dozen years or more. So if you want to have some fun, work with like-minded people, and share your thoughts on a platform. Remember, we're now on the Hockey News, hockeynews.com/Montreal. You're welcome to join us.
Yeah, this will be my third season with Rocket Sports, and now I'm hosting the podcast almost every single Saturday. And honestly, it's great to have a platform. People tune in, they listen to what I say. It's phenomenal. So if you're like-minded like that, and that's something that interests you, definitely reach out to Rick Stevens, and he'll get you all set up with us. Now it's a good time to get to our Canadiens Connection question of the week, and I've teased this a few times, but which players will you be watching during the Canadiens rookie camp? There are lots of different interesting options, and we want to make sure that we hear from you. Like I said, our Rocket Sports text line is 5853-ROCKET, and Rick, if people have a little bit more to say, I believe they can email us as well.
Sure can. Send us an email at hello@rocketsportsmedia.com. If you want to talk about David Reinbacher, Logan Mailloux, some of the more popular young rookies, maybe it's Owen Beck, Emil Heineman, Sean Farrell, let's not forget about him, or Riley Kidney, really skilled player, or maybe John Mishak, who we spent a lot of time talking about today.
And we get tons of messages throughout the week, texts, emails, comments on our social media, comments on YouTube. And Rick, I think we found the perfect description of how this fan base is feeling about the Montreal Canadiens this season and the job that Kent Hughes did over the offseason. And I will let you present that. We
have a wonderful hockey community who has been with Rocket Sports, some for a very long time. And their opinions run the gamut from one extreme to another and right in the middle. We asked you to rate Kent Hughes and the success that he's had. And these comments come straight from Facebook. And they're top to bottom, both extremes and in the middle. And interestingly, they came consecutively, which is amazing. Robert on Facebook says, new management has made some good moves, but the success of this team can't be based on one off season. All right, that's a reasonable opinion. One extreme, Mike says, Kent Hughes is a great GM. All right. Christopher says, this is a clown show, wasted draft picks, bad trades, and retaining a delusional peewee coach. The Canadiens will never make the playoffs or even play 500 shinny. All right, thank you. Wonderful audience, wonderful set of listeners with very, very diverse opinions, and we just love hearing from all of you. We truly do. If we look at YouTube, you mentioned that our podcasts are on YouTube, so we also get comments on YouTube. This one comes from Carey on YouTube. He says, A+ for subtractions. Remember, we talked about Ken Hughes, his additions and subtractions. Much of the analytics, the way the Canadiens have progressed, focus on the deletions, and being Drouin and Edmondson. So Carey says A+ for subtractions. Reinbacher is an A+. Then the Newhook gamble. Is it similar to Doc? Undetermined, as no games played with Montreal as of yet. Give it 18 games on November 18th. Then you can decide how his start went. Drafting goalies and a second Jack-Eye, unproven so far. Cheers from Carey. We also got a long text from Chris in Hamilton, Ohio. And I'm not going to read. I think I'm going to save this one for next week. But he starts out and says, regarding yesterday's podcast, he listened to it on Sunday. Brilliant as usual. Thank you. And he talks about the various GMs. Remember, I said don't trust every GM because there hasn't been much success over the past year. So he goes in great detail. He's obviously a student of the Montreal Canadiens, a student of the game, and he has a lot of history to rely on watching this team. And he says that the Canadiens have not had a worthy GM since Sam Pollock until now. He says that he trusts the current Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton more than he's trusted any leadership group that has preceded them, save Sam Pollock. So I'm going to read this whole thing next week because he's got a lot of good points. But we've had such good response to our podcasts over the summer, and certainly to last week's. We're happy that you like the topics that we bring to you, and we should say that your feedback helps us determine what we focus on. So thank you to all our listeners, and we're looking forward to a season with you.
Yeah, and we love the passion. If there's anything I get from all of these messages and comments, it's that our listeners are very passionate about this team. And I love to see it. Everyone's thinking critically about what's going on. And through some of these messages and comments, I can tell they're listening to us as well, which is very good to hear too. So continue to do that. If you have anything to say at all, don't hesitate to reach out to us. And it's going to be an interesting week for these Montreal Canadiens. The next game they have in this Prospect Challenge in Buffalo is going to be on September the 18th versus Ottawa, 1:30 p.m. puck drop. So like I said, if you're at work, make sure you have an empty monitor that you can pop the game on and watch that through work.
We're also going to this weekend, in addition to keeping an eye on the games, and we'll talk about both the Boston game and the Ottawa game on next week's show, so don't worry about that. But this weekend, we're also, a non-hockey matter, we're also thinking about our listeners and our friends in Atlantic Canada. It's a tough weather weekend with Tropical Storm Lee, and we're just... our thoughts are going to be with you. And stay safe. We're just hoping for the best for the folks in Atlantic Canada.
Absolutely. So that's going to be a wrap for us today. Thank you all for tuning in and listening. Please make sure you subscribe to the Canadiens Connection podcast in the player or on any of your favorite podcasting apps. You can also share it on social media if you like what you heard. Enjoy the week, and we'll be back here next Saturday, September the 23rd, for another great episode. Thank you all for listening to the Canadiens Connection podcast here on Rocket Sports Radio.
Click subscribe so you never miss an episode of Canadiens Connection. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Rocket Sports.